Thinking about what to say in the GE conversations made me cast my mind way back, to the first time I actually heard the term general education. It was when I was in first year in college in my Com 1 class, where we had to write a paragraph about the revitalized general education program. My topic sentence? GE is unnecessary. My instructor was right in the comments she wrote. My paragraph was brief, and so was my experience in GE at the time. Now 11 years since I wrote that cringe-worthy paragraph, I find myself overwhelmed by the many ways that GE enriches one's life in the university and beyond. Let me just touch on a few of them, particularly from my experience of teaching Arts 1 and in the context of remote learning and the pandemic. One of the challenges I've had with Arts 1 is, perhaps as in most GE courses, its broad scope. Although the syllabus does say that here, the arts is broadly conceived, there seems to be a privileging of the visual arts in the teaching of Arts 1. And this I think is partly because of the availability of learning resources and the impression that digging deep in one specific matter is better than merely touching upon the surfaces of so many. That is why when it comes to the topic of the language of art, there might be a tendency to focus on painting, sculpture, and architecture. Nevertheless, one could say that the other parts of the course do address important issues pertinent to the arts, broadly conceived. But how they do address these issues in the ways that various themes overlap, recur, or interweave must be pointed out and presented. Teaching is a curatorial endeavor, and I have come to realize this even more since the pandemic forced us to teach and learn remotely. Integrating learning topics and tasks, tracing the threads that run through the course, and striving for coherence are all pre-pandemic regimens. But when the unique conditions of remote learning urged us to reconsider students' workload, I have become extra conscious about what I make my students read and do, especially avoiding redundancy in activities and learning outcomes. For the midterm exam, this is what I tried to do. Project Remake required students to choose from a selection of paintings with accompanying essays that contextualize these works. They then had to remake the painting through photography, which may communicate a message resonant with or contrary to the painting's interpretation or presumed message. Coming after topics on the art experience and the specificities of art, the project allows students to reinforce their skills in formal analysis and engage in an actual creative process. Coming before topics on the social, political, and economic forces that shape art, the project prepares students to engage with critical theories and the complexities of interpretation. By reinterpreting the painting's message, they may reflect upon whether this message is at odds with our own context, if it echoes a contemporary issue that they want to re-articulate, if the work can be engaged to think of persistent forms of oppression, predicaments posed by the pandemic that hit us close to home, and the unspeakable effects of systemic problems that we cannot and should not be made to come to terms with. In these instances, art is understood and experienced not as an escape from reality, but a grappling, a confrontation with it. Critical perspectives in the arts become particularly important in the context of an information society in which texts, images, and art practices are shared freely and in multitudes every day and everywhere. In this way, to grasp the world as a set of texts, an active ecology of creative expressions, and to be doubly aware of the ways we approach, relate with, and possibly reproduce them. A lifelong skill of sensing and making sense of the world. The ecology of art, if you will, which involves the processes of production, circulation, and reception, may be said to roughly simulate other forms of relation in the natural and social world. But perhaps one oddity about art is that, as we remember from critical theory, it often seems regarded as divorced from the material and political conditions of society, a pretty part of the atmosphere, a pure realm of creative agency, impermeable, a world unto itself, or one that reflects reality crystal clearly. And yet these are exactly what critical perspectives in the arts demystify. Arts 1 fleshes out the ways art, as a dynamic process of meaning-making, also becomes a site for the communication, contestation, and negotiation of ideas and values. The interrogation which critical perspectives empower students to engage in emphasizes that although art may perpetuate problematic ideas and practices, it could expose and append them. As a GE course, Arts 1 hones this attitude of curiosity and criticality. A mind that answers questions, yes, but more crucially, a mind that questions answers.